Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks exciting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. Oh, and just one more thing before we go. Please consider like, commenting, and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. But now with all that out of the way, let's carry on with the video. Okay, so to start off our wyvern here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to start off with some burnt flesh. Now I know it sounds weird using sort of a skin tone on a dragon here, but I want to, as close as I can, follow the official Dungeons & Dragons artwork, and this I believe is the closest colour that we've got to the official artwork, and we want it to be a nice brownish sort of skin tone overall, because wyverns are not like dragons and they don't have the very bright colours, the reds, the blacks, the blues and stuff like that. They're very muted and a bit more realistic colour looking, and I think burnt flesh is going to be good for this. And of course these wizkids miniatures are already pre-primed, so we don't even have to worry about that. We can just get straight into painting. That's always the great thing with these miniatures. Now once we have the main scales all painted up, what we're going to be doing is coming in with some fur brown, and all we're going to be doing is we're going to be dry brushing it on top of all these other scales, so we get a bit of variation in colour. The nice bright orangey fur brown will help stick out on the tops of these scales amongst that burnt flesh we have on there as well. So just giving it a nice good dry brush, and it's especially good to do it at this time because we don't have to worry about accidentally getting the dry brushing onto anywhere else we don't want it as well. Okay, now we have all those scales all dry brushed up, time to move on with some natural flesh. Now again, we're using another flesh tone for this, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using it for the middle parts of our wings here that we've got. So we want to, again, like I said, we're trying to keep it as close as we can to the official D&D artwork, and the wyvern there is very neutral in tones and colours, so the skin colours are perfect for this situation. So we're just, again, now starting to be very careful, especially on those spines along the wings. We want to get as close as we can to them without too much overlap. Okay, so now we have the main colour of the wings painted in. We're going to move on with some khaki now. And the khaki we're going to be placing on the plates just underneath the wyvern's belly here. Now, that's the reason why I've left them out so far, because I wanted them to be a different colour, so we can add in a few more variations of colour, otherwise it would be very, very boring. But the wyvern in the artwork does have a little bit of a different colour on the belly as well. I'm just sort of accentuating that a bit more, and I think khaki is going to be a good colour to do this with. Okay, so once we have those scales all painted in, what we're going to do now is come in with some scar tissue. And the scar tissue, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be painting just on the inside of our wyvern's mouth here, really getting in to all these areas. It's got that nice big protruding tongue in the way, so we want to make sure we get all of that, as well as the gums and the teeth on the side. We want to definitely make sure we get those as well. And camera's a little bit out of focus, but you just want to be careful where we're applying that so we're not getting it too much over our other colours as well. So now we have his mouth painted up. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some Necromancer Cloak. And the Necromancer Cloak, we're going to be using it to be painting up the claws and the stinger of our wyvern here. Now, I decided to go with Necromancer Cloak rather than black like I usually would. I didn't want it to be so dark and really stick out there in such a in-your-face way. I want it to be more natural transition, and I wanted to add in another effect a little bit later on, and I think black wouldn't pull it off as well as the Necromancer Cloak being a slightly duller black, more of a very, very dark grey, is to help with that. And of course we want to pick out all the little spines you can see here on his back and the little horns he has on there as well, making sure we be very careful not to paint too much over all the other areas where we don't want this colour to be. Okay, so now we have all those little claws and stingers picked out. What we're going to be doing is coming in with some ivory now, and all we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be picking out the little teeth he has sculpted into him. I know it looks a lot like just straight gums, but there is actually a few little teeth picked in there. So I'm just grabbing a nice fine tip brush and just running it along, really trying to pick out those teeth on the mouth. Okay, so now we've got the Wyvern's teeth picked out. We're going to come in with some Avalon Sunset. And what I'm doing with the Avalon Sunset is I'm going to be using it to be picking out our Wyvern's eyes. Now this is going to be a nice delicate procedure that we're trying to do here, so make sure you grab yourself a nice fine tip brush and just carefully dot it in. You want to make sure you don't have too much paint on the brush as well. I'm just more dabbing it in here than I am actually painting it over top of the eye, so we can get as close as we can to just filling in the gap that we want to here. So again, it's going to require a steady hand. Brace yourself as much as you can. I'm putting my elbows on the desk so I can get as steady as I can with the paint job I'm trying to do here. Alright, now we have that colour of the eyes done. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some black, and we've got to put in those scary pupils in the eye, which are always a pain for me, but I'm slowly getting better at it. And again, you want to find the sharpest tip brush you've got, or you can also use needle, just dip it into a little bit of black paint and dab it in there to get the pupils of the eyes. But I want to, again, work on my practice with this, so I'm using a brush. Okay, now with all those eyes picked out, what we're going to be doing is painting some castle grey, and we want to be, of course, painting this on the rock that our Wyvern is sort of standing proud on. So we want to make sure we get that, avoiding the toes, but we definitely want to make sure we get into the cracks between those toes to really sell the effect that he's on a rock and we haven't just blobbed paint on there. So again, just being very careful to avoid painting it onto the Wyvern itself. Okay, so now with our rock and ground texture painted up, we're going to come in with some stonewall grey now, and all I'm going to be doing is giving a dry brush over that rock and ground texture. Now, the actual miniature itself, when you get it out of the pack, it does come standing on this rock, but this ground texture is something I've added in myself. This is not part of the actual miniature's base. All it is just some sand that I've grabbed from my driveway and given it a bit of treatment and glued it on with some PVA glue to give off the effect that there's a bit more ground cover on here. And once we've dry brushed that on, it's time to come in with another dry brush, and again using ash grey, which is a nice lighter grey, so it's going to help emphasize those highlights just a little bit more. Now I am, of course, using a very small dry brush for this because I don't want to be getting it over the Wyvern itself, but it may happen to you, but it's okay. You just can use the colours that you've accidentally hit it with just to touch it up, because we are still in the base coating stage, so it's not too much of a problem. And we've done a little bit of dry brush on the scales, but I don't think you'll pick it out too much if you do happen to get it just a little bit over the scales. Okay, now with our base all dry brushed up, we're going to come in now with some agrax earthshade. Now agrax earthshade we want to be applying to pretty much the entirety of the miniature, except for we're going to be missing out some key parts. So the parts we're going to be missing out is we're not going to be doing the chest plates of his underbelly. We want to be avoiding those, as well as we're going to be avoiding the rock and the ground as well. We don't want to be painting those, as well as the inside of the Wyvern's mouth. We don't want to be painting there as well. We're going to be using some different washes for those, so we give us some different effects, so it's not all going to blend together and all be brown washed miniature. We want to separate those out with some different washes. So again, just going over here now with a nice big wide brush to avoid any streaking. So once our agrax earthshade is completely dry, we're going to move on with some seraphim sepia now. Now the seraphim sepia is where we're going to be applying over the belly of our dragon here with those nice plates that we've painted up. So this is exactly why I said we want to avoid this in the last step, is so we can get a different effect, and it's going to stand out on the miniature a lot more than if we had it just gone brown straight over this. So we want to add in a different effect, get a bit of change in the miniature, and this is going to help us do this. So just being very careful to avoid painting it over everywhere else we've placed the washes. Then once his belly plates are all dry, we're going to come in now with some red tone. And you might see it was a little weird placing red tone in here, but all we're going to be doing is placing it inside the mouth. I want to give it a bit of a reddish tint. But if you want to either chuck in a black wash or just use your brown wash in here, it's perfectly fine, but I wanted to give them sort of a more deeper, richer color. So red tone, I think, is going to help with this and separate it out a little bit. Okay, so once his mouth is complete, we're going to come in now with some nuln oil. And this, of course, is a black wash. And we're going to be placing this over the rock and the base of the miniature. So I did tell you to avoid this in the before step because I didn't want to have brown rocks. I want to go for a different sort of feel with the miniature and not have it tie so much into the wyvern itself. I want to separate it out, and adding in a black wash here is going to help with this. So being very careful to avoid painting the wash over top of the miniature. You can see I'm turning the brush on the side to get in between his toes. And then of course just spreading it all over the base. Okay, with that complete, what we're going to be doing is we're coming in with some kobold skin. A kobold skin is a step up lighter from the neutral flesh tone we've used for his wings, so this is going to add into a good highlight. And as you can see here, I'm dry brushing on this rather than painting it on manually as a highlight, because this wing is perfect for dry brushing. It has all nice creases and folds, and it's going to really lend itself to dry brushing really nicely. So we want to get in there, and we want to be careful to avoid the spines, but of course we're going pretty rough, so don't be afraid if you do. We can always touch up the other parts. Okay, now we have those wings highlighted up. What we're going to be doing is coming in with some skeleton bone now, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be applying it onto his belly plates and some small striping motion. And as you can see, I'm so concentrated on this and careful to not get it anywhere that I don't want it to be, that I don't notice I have a big huge hair on on my brush. That's very distracting. So you can see the type of focus I'm using when I'm doing small details like this. I don't even notice when the split of stray hair is flying all around the place, all over my brush. So just again, placing small, sharp little lines to sell off the effect, like we've got some nice worn-in plates on his belly. Okay, so now we have those plates picked out. What I'm going to be doing is coming in with some contrast paint here, and this is Warp Lightning. And all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be just applying just a teensy bit to his tail spike that he has here, which is this nice venom spine that he's got here, and I want to place just a little bit of Warp Lightning because wyverns are known for having very poisonous stinging tails, so Warp Lightning's gonna help sell the effect like there's a little bit of poison on the end of his tail. And I'm not doing it the whole way down the tail, just a little bit on the tip, just as a nice cool added effect. And now with his tail all nice and poisoned up, what we're going to be doing is coming in with some ivory. And all I'm going to be doing with the ivory is I'm just going to be coming in and giving one last final small quick highlight over top of the rocks in our ground cover to add in just a slight more highlight, like there's a lot more sun shining on this area. And with that, we have completed our miniature. I'm going to be adding just a few grass tufts to give it a bit more life to the scene. So it's totally up to you what you want to do here, if you want to have grass tufts or just leave it the way it is. But with all that, we've now completed the miniature. And with all that complete, we have now finally finished painting up the wyvern from the Dungeons & Dragons WizKids range. And I think we got pretty close to the official artwork that they have in the monster manual. So I hope this has been useful, whether you guys want to follow along and do what I did here and follow the manual, or you just want to enjoy watching me paint up some cool miniatures. So with that, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.